Okay, hi everyone. This is Cody King. I am doing the second night of doing these little campfire horror story kind of things. I know this one is a lot later than the other one was, but there are a lot of reasons for that, a lot of real life matters. Um, but I'm not going to get into that. Instead, I'm just going to dive right into this. So, the first story, the word prompt that I gave myself was popsicle. Alright, let's make something out of this one. You know, one of the things that is very different from Colorado here in Arizona is it's almost always hot all year round. I'm used to the Colorado weather where we can get snow in the summer and where we can get big snowstorms in the winter. I'm not really used to this whole, it can be sometimes 100 degrees even going on into the winter, and getting floods all throughout summer and maybe a little bit of fall. So, one of the things that you really start to take for granted is popsicles. I know that everyone knows what I'm talking about. The feeling from even back when you were a kid, that nostalgic feeling of just opening up a box. My favorites usually those red, white, and blue ones or the creamsicle ones. You just take it out, it's right fresh from the freezer. You open your package, you have to scrape off a little bit of the frost and the ice from it, but still, you just pop it in your mouth and you get all those artificial flavors, all that really nice sugary goodness. Oh man, those are always awesome. So, it's a little disappointing when you don't have those kind of treats anymore. But while I was walking around, I actually found a pretty nice looking store. It had its own assortment of homemade popsicles. Well, I couldn't really not go in, could I? Especially when a lot of the flavors looked actually pretty nice. There was one that was reminiscent of the old creamsicles. There was a Bloody Mary. There was a watermelon. I assumed from the Bloody Mary one that these were more adult popsicles. So I went ahead and I got myself one of the Bloody Mary ones and one of the watermelons. Watermelon's always been one of my favorite fruits, so that's the one I started with first. I opened that package and I took out the pretty big looking popsicle. It wasn't even that expensive. I was able to get the two of them for like what, less than $3. So I took the first lick of that watermelon one, expecting it to not really be that flavorful, but I was wrong. That first lick was almost like I was eating a watermelon all by itself. Something that I really like, actually. Watermelon's always been a good fruit, and even though the artificial ones aren't terrible, nothing can really compete with the real thing. So that was a nice surprise. I really quickly bit into that popsicle, and it really was like biting into an actual watermelon. Of course, that meant that the popsicle went by pretty quick, and I was kind of disappointed. So I turned my attention to the Bloody Mary one, which was starting to melt a little bit. I wasn't really fully home yet. I opened it and I pulled it out, and the first thing that hit me was a stench. Like, not that alcoholic stench. The Bloody Marys, they have that kind of nice, uh, very spicy tinge to them. But not this. This was a different stench. It was almost like what you would expect to find on the side of the road when you went past some roadkill or something. It was terrible. I almost didn't want to bring myself to bite into it, but I paid money for it, so I might as well. So I held my nose and I took a little bit of a tentative lick. Oh man, I wish I didn't take that lick. I mean, you take. Ugh. It wasn't a Bloody Mary flavor. It wasn't like alcoholic or anything like that. It was very, I want to say visceral. Like when you are a little kid and you just get that very, like, curious first lick of a piece of raw meat. Like, you're not supposed to do that. As a kid, you're told you're not supposed to do that, but sometimes you're just curious. This was almost like that, but so, so much worse. It tasted off. Like, it tasted sour. And not the good kind of sour. The kind of sour that your brain immediately tells you do not eat that. Ugh. And then the stench. Ugh. The more I had it out in the open, the stronger the stench got. It got so strong that I actually heard some wild dogs start to get a little closer, probably really, really liking that stench. I couldn't bring myself to eat it, so I threw it. The dogs immediately went after it. And I started on my way back, but I had to take one last turn. And I wish that I didn't, because the last thing that I saw from the dogs that were biting into that popsicle was a very realistic looking eye. Its green iris staring at me in a glassed over look. I almost felt bile rolling up my throat, and I had to run. It wasn't a need for being scared or anything like that. I just needed to find the toilet. I never went to that shop again, and I still refuse to. Okay. So that one wasn't that great. But, it's the first thing that I could think of when I reread that prompt that I gave myself. So let's go on to the second one then, shall we? Fire. Ooh. Alright. So one thing that I'm going to tell you guys is, ever since I was a little kid, I've always had strange dreams. These dreams can be something very, very realistic, like actually looking up to a clock, realizing that I looked at the clock in a dream, and then saying, it's like I'm dreaming before I wake up. Or it can be something unrealistic, like fighting Rita Repulsa while being backed up by Godzilla on a train that's going through a Toys R Us. True story that actually happened in a dream. But then there are just sometimes dreams that are unsettling. Like one time when I was young, I just went to bed and, it wasn't the best day. It was one of those days that you get made fun of in school, where a lot of things just go at once and you just don't have the best feeling about yourself. But, you kind of push them off to your mom when she asks, and you just decide to go to bed. Well, I thought I woke up, but it was so weird when I woke up, because there was just this stench of sulfur all around me. I peered along after I got my head out from under the covers, and it was like my entire room had a grayscale to it. I thought it was just darkness or something like that, but no, it was just a lack of color. Only ash grays, and a couple of times where I saw what almost looked like embers peeking through a cracked wall. When I saw those embers, it didn't take me all that long to think in the dream, oh, I must be dreaming. But dreams aren't usually that strong. You know what I mean? They don't usually have that strong of a smell or, you know, feeling the immense heat that can come from it. Well, I wanted to see what else was in the dream, so I brought my feet out from under my bed, and as soon as they touched the floor, I had to bring them back because there was this searing pain. It was almost like I was trying to walk on hot rocks. I looked down, and there was that embery glow of, well, ember. And after a while, I convinced myself to try it again. It hurt, but it was something that I was going to get used to anyway. I mean, I wanted to see what else was in the dream, you know. So I took a few steps, and I heard the hiss of my feet as I was walking along. I could feel the sweltering heat as it started to make me sweat up a storm. I opened my door, which cracked from the immense heat until it finally broke. I was very concerned by now because this was a very disturbing vision that I was seeing. It was almost like I was in my house, but it was burning. And not like an actual fire, but just like a fire that was in the walls, not wanting to come out, and under the floor, only peeking through every once in a while. Like it wasn't a raging inferno, but it was just these embers that were just there constantly, almost like they were keeping the room and house into a sweltering summer breeze. I wonder if it was actually like that on the surface of the sun or something like that, if you ever were able to make a house like that. Things that you think when you're a kid, huh? Well, I kept taking steps, and I finally made my way to the back door of the house. And when I opened it, I almost screamed. There were huge flames. Flames that were licking the sky itself. The sky was discolored in orange and reds. All these warm yet horrifying in this type of way. I looked around and there was nothing but fire, flames. They were almost licking at me but staying relatively away. But they were lapping at the house very good. As a kid, especially when that's brought up with Christian parents, you're always fed images of be good or you'll go to hell. I was wondering as a kid if I was actually already there. The heat was almost unbearable. I was sweating bullets. I think I almost peed myself out of pure fear. I wanted to go back into the house, but for some reason my legs took one step forward, and instead of being met by the ground, I fell. I fell, and when I looked down, there was a gaping inferno that was coming after me. I was coming to meet it at a great pace, and it just kept coming closer and closer, and right before I went to hit it, I hit the ground. Turns out that I rolled over in my sleep and fell out of my bed. I almost screamed, but I think I was just too shocked. I never had that dream again, but even that once made it seared into my memory. It burned it into there. To this day, I can still smell the burning wood of the house, the stinging of my feet, and the hiss of the skin. Sometimes dreams can leave a mark on you, but I'll tell you what, it didn't change my love for fire any. Okay, So that's the second one down. Third one is fishing. Ooh, fishing. All right. Well, this one isn't really about me. It's about a friend of mine I had. I say had because we kind of drifted apart. Don't want to get into that too much, but he was an avid fisherman, and he actually was able to go on a trip with his grandpa over to this one lake that his grandpa just hyped up for him. I hadn't really heard of it. I like to fish, but I hadn't heard of that one. Maybe it was in a different state. I don't remember the name of it. It just sounded really strange to me. But he went there, and he and his grandpa went on that boat, and it was kind of nice, he said. He loved to fish, even if he had to just stay in the boat and almost go to sleep if it weren't for all the beers. He cast his line out into the water, and so did his grandpa. And they just stayed there telling stories and laughing. You know, the kind of things that you always want to do with your grandpa or your dad, that kind of bonding experience. Well, it was just a normal day fishing, almost not catching anything. Reeling in your fishing line, and then when you notice there's nothing on it but the bait, you just cast it back out. Maybe trying to hit a different spot, but overall, the thing about fishing is it's just a waiting game. Well, it was that way for a few hours, and the sun was starting to set. His grandpa was about to get them back to the shore, but then his reel started going crazy. He must have caught a big fish. He told my friend, just stay put, we're gonna get back there, but I gotta reel this in first. And then, from what my friend said, he was actually struggling. Now, I knew my friend's grandpa. He wasn't like the world's strongest person, but he definitely wasn't frail. I mean, this guy was an avid fisherman and hunter. He tried to keep his body in shape so that he could go the distance, and, all power to him. But he was struggling with this thing. And it wasn't like they were out on the ocean or something like that and there was a shark. He just shouldn't be struggling that much for something that was in this small lake, right? That's weird. But there he was, apparently struggling with it. And just when it seemed like he was about to give up, he slipped. Fell right into the water. Now, my friend was panicking, and he tried to look all over for his grandpa. And he was just about to call out with his voice hoarse from fear when his grandpa's hand lurched out of the water and into the boat. My friend helped pull him up, and, he was relieved. But his grandpa was a little quiet. He held a pretty big bass in his hand. And he said, "It's good fishing tonight." My friend was very relieved, obviously, but he didn't really hear his grandpa talk like that. But overall, he thought that it must have been the harrowing experience. Maybe his adrenaline was pumping through him so fast still. So, the grandpa brought him back to land and held that bass out and packaged it up and started getting to the car. And then my friend looked at his grandpa and he noticed something kind of weird. You see, his grandpa had these almost hazy eyes. The kind that are almost like steel, you know what I mean? The kind that seem to get a little bit foggier with age. Well, this time when he looked at his grandpa had these vibrant green eyes. It was so weird. At least he thought that his grandpa had green eyes. Must have been only for a second because they seemed to squint back and turn their normal color. So, he brushed it off. He came back with his grandpa and they cooked that fish. He said he would have given me some, but it was too good apparently. That friend of mine's grandpa seemed to get a little bit weirder after that. He'd always be going to different fish markets, and instead of fishing for himself, he'd get nothing but fish. And I love fish. Fish is my favorite kind of meat, but these fish is more expensive. Like, at least you can get some hamburgers for a reasonable price, but this guy he was bringing whole tuna and octopus and squid, all these different big and expensive fish. And it just was odd. His grandpa didn't even go hunting anymore. He fished more, but no more hunting, and he almost never ate vegetables. He ate a few things, but now that I think about it, he also started to have a tendency to eat insects. Like, back in Colorado, we had this place that was called the Butterfly Pavilion. And one of the things you could get in the gift shops were these treats that were made with bugs. A lot of times candied or just mealworms. And they were made for human consumption. And yeah, sure, I had some mealworms from time to time, but I never did the kind of stuff that the grandpa did. He started raising ants, and when they got big enough, he'd just start eating them. I always thought that was weird. Ugh. But I haven't spoken to my friend in years. Maybe the grandpa stopped. Okay, so that's fishing. Monster. Ooh. Okay. Now I could do the cheap way and saying that counted as the monster one too, but instead have a little bit of a twist on it. So we all have those times where we're looking for love, right? It's kind of the human condition. We all want a partner, we all want to be loved, we all want to be accepted. Well, this is also the digital age. You can just go onto these apps and a couple tabs to make your profile, and then you might be set up with the love of your life. Well, I know someone who went and made a profile. He was a desperate one, so he didn't really have a lot of dislikes on his profile. He was there swiping right and left, and, well, mostly right to match with them. And after a while, he did get a match. It was this beautiful looking woman. Like, he showed me a picture of her. Long blonde hair, piercing brown, almost reddish eyes. She's very tall. Like, very tall. I think she was almost 6 foot. She had a very regal look to her. And, he brought her over the first date that they had because, he was my friend, and he said that I was the only friend of his that could cook a really good meal. So I did. He paid me a little bit to get groceries, so I got him, made the meal, gave them to him. Apparently, she wanted to only have lightly seared meat, which, you know, I'm used to cooking things rare and all that, but it was almost raw. Forget the way that it's said. I think it's tartar or something like that. But she liked it, so I was happy enough with it turning out the way it did. And that buddy of mine, he liked his steak, so I just smiled and took the little bit of money that he had to give me. And when he left, I thought, man, look at me helping those two find love. This was years back, and that guy, well, I lost contact with him after that. And I never saw the woman again either. But that buddy of mine, we almost always chatted about playing games online together. Not anymore. I mean, granted, he wasn't like a really, really good friend of mine or something, but he must have just either stopped playing or had to get rid of his subscriptions or something. The thing is, the very last time that I saw him, he was very pale. Almost as pale as that beautiful woman he was dating. He always seemed very tired. Never coming out in the daylight hours, but he always seemed tired. His eyes looked very dim. But apparently it turned out well for him, considering every time I saw him, he had a hickey. Alright, there we go for that one. I thought that it would be kind of fun to do the kind of lighthearted ending to that one. The last one is Stranger, but this time I am going to go ahead and say that the last one qualifies that one. I would make a larger video, but it's a lot later in the night. I'm a little bit more tired, and I hope that this was a good one for all of you. I'm going to try to get this edited, or not edited, because I'm going to kind of put it in as is again. This is just kind of something that I'm doing for fun anyway. But I hope that you guys like it. I hope that I'm able to entertain you guys a little bit. And I am sorry if I didn't, but if you have different things that you want me to make a story about, or have things that you want me to do, I know I didn't do a lot of voices in this one, but well, anyway. I hope you guys had fun. I hope I was able to entertain you. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your night and a great week and a great month. I hope that you guys enjoy spooks, scares, skeletons, even if they send shivers down your spine. And remember that you are cared for, you are loved, and you are wanted. Alright, bye.